Hey everyone, before we jump into the episode, let's talk about this amazing Kickstarter. That's right, the Magali Villeneuve Playmat Collection is here. She is one of the most iconic Magic artists of all time, and some of her best pieces are being showcased in this fantastic collection. There are 5 outstanding playmats available at launch and even more available with stretch goals. Magali's art is truly something to treasure. So go check out this Kickstarter now and back it before it ends on the 21st of March. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Command Score Studio. Welcome to the show, and what a show I've got for you today, because this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, because I have done this before. I have built an entire deck around winning with one spell, and I can tell you, it is quite fun when you pull it off. So with all that said, let's jump into my picks for the top cards for the one spell victory in Commander. Let's jump into it. So to start things off, I've got to give my favorite, the first spot, of course, Villainous Wealth. I love you, Villainous Wealth. You are so fun. And I've actually had multiple decks built around this. My original was a Tasker deck. Now with this one, I'll get to the commander here in a little bit. But anyways, Villainous Wealth is a really fun card. Sorcery for X in Sultai colors. Target opponent exiles the top X cards of their library. You may cast any number of non-land cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them without paying their mana cost. Basically, put a lot of mana into that X and then just choose an opponent, or with my deck, you're going to be choosing multiple because you get multiple of these, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get to play your deck for you. I mean, not for you, I'm not like stealing your turn, but like I'm taking your 30 cards out of your deck, whatever it is, whatever I'm putting in that X, and just saying, yeah, I'll cast this, ooh, not that, this. Basically, you're getting everything except for lands, and like if there's like a board wipe, you probably don't want to cast that if it's going to hurt you. But yes, you get to play them in any order. It's a massive, huge turn, and just seeing the terror on someone's face when you cast this spell and you're like, oh yeah, X equals 20, and they're like, oh gosh, I really hope they don't hit this, and this, and then all of a sudden you hit all those huge things. It's a really fun experience, and I highly recommend utilizing this. Now, the shell that I have for this kind of a card, though, is a deck that is actually built with Jodah Archmage Eternal, which I actually think kind of throws people off a little bit, because Jodah typically is like, hey, cheat giant things into play. And yes, there are some things that cheat into play with this, but essentially what you're doing with Jodah is you're just setting yourself up. You've got a lot of ways to ramp. You've got some massive spells, essentially. And with this, you're like, okay, instead of just paying 7 for this huge spell, like a Clarion Ultimatum, which, well, that's a weird card, but regardless, a good example, that does cost 7, this one's like, okay, I'll pay 5 instead, I'll save on that, and my opponents think I'm just doing big things, and because, like, I'm not really doing anything, I'm just kind of spinning my wheels and just getting lands into play, sometimes they're like, oh, okay, like, they just have Jodah out, but at any point, you can turn the game on its head by then playing Villainous Wealth, and also copying it. Yeah, that is the thing with these big, massive spells, sometimes with some of them. I guess some of them don't really apply, but this one definitely does. If you copy it, if you copy Villainous Wealth, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can either double target that same person or split up and target 2 people, or I think my record is like 6 copies of Villainous Wealth, I think at 11 in X. So essentially what, like get 66 cards off the top of players' libraries and split that up however you want. Typically just for fun, I tend to pick like, okay, I'll make it even for each player essentially, unless someone has like a deck where it absolutely makes 0 sense for me. Like if it's like, I guess, like, I was going to say, like, a rat tribal deck came to my mind. I don't know why, but that could actually work out for you. If you're like, oh, I got, like, 14 relentless rats on the top of your library, that can be a game-winning condition for you. Typically, casting Villainous Wealth in a big, splashy way like this can just win the game, sometimes accidentally right away by getting, like, miscellaneous things there, and they just combo together, and you're like, oh, I win. Not my fault. Moving on, another example of a commander you might want to utilize Villainous Wealth with is with a Zexar the Exemplary deck. A 2/3 Nightmare Hydra that has Death Touch, tap, add about 2 mana of any one color. So again, a nice little ramp for you right there. A good like mana dork for you, but also on top of that, whenever you cast a spell with X and its mana cost, you make a 0/0 green Hydra token, put X counters on it. So a great X spell commander, one that says, hey, in addition to stealing a lot of things with Villainous Wealth, you also get a giant Hydra to help you out as well. Or hey, speaking of giant, how about Omnath Locus of All? This one is kind of like a mana piggy bank for you. If you lose unspent mana, it becomes black instead, so that can help you out in just storing up mana to essentially be like, okay, cool, eventually I'll utilize that for Villainous Wealth, again in that X, and also in the black mana cost as well. Also on top of the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, look at the top card of your library. You may reveal that card if it's got 3 or more colored mana symbols in its cost. If you do, add 3 mana, any combination of its colors to your hand. If you don't reveal it, put in your hand. Basically, hey, you're going to be getting 3 free mana for just drawing Villainous Wealth with this commander. Not drawing it, but looking at it. You know what I mean? So yeah, that could be a huge thing for you. Just save up and say, you know what, Villainous Wealth, big turn for me. Next up, another 1-spell win condition, a new one, Doppelgang. This one is really sweet. I love the design of this one. Sorcery for XXX green blue. My goodness. I think we've seen now like 2 or 3 XXX spells. Like, there's not a lot out there. So yeah, it's got to have a big effect, and this one definitely does. For each of X target permanents, create X tokens that are copies of that permanent. Okay, so basically we're making an absurd amount of token copies of things, which is just great. All of a sudden, I mean, at 5 mana in total, right? At 1 for each of those X, that's not very good. That's just make 1 token copy of 1 thing. That's not all that great. That being said, it's anything on the board, so that could be still be very good. That being said, though, at 8 mana, okay, now we're stepping things up a little bit, 2 copies of 2 things. That is 4 permanents for 8 mana. That's pretty nice. How about 11, though? 3 copies of 3 things. Oh, we're at 9 now. That is absurd. That's a lot of value. Oh, keep going a little further. 14 mana. And yeah, again, with these kinds of decks and strategies, you're going to be building up mana for this. So all of a sudden at 14 mana, again, that is 4 of them. 14, 15, whatever it is. I'm off. That is essentially, it's 14. That is 4 times 4. That is 16 things. Even if you're just picking a land, if you're like, okay, yeah, I picked my 4 lands. You know, there's like regular lands, like islands and forests. You're like, okay, cool. I ramp 16. Okay. And yeah, they come to play untapped too. So yeah, this can be a crazy cool card. Of course, you're going to have really cool permanents in your deck that you can copy. You can also be like, oh, that opponent has a Blightsteel Colossus. Cool. Now I have 4 of them. Yay, everyone's happy. Well, I'm happy. Yeah, a really cool card that can win in a lot of different ways. And again, a giant mana dump for you. A really cool 1-spell victory in Commander. When it comes to Commanders, the first one that came to my mind is actually Eddie's, Rick Smithy's Slumbering Island deck, because Eddie mentioned that he might be adding that in there. So Doppelgang, I'm not looking forward to seeing in Rick Smithy's, but it's going to be crazy cool. A 12/12 Kraken for 4 mana. And just battlefield, tap with 5 slumber counters on it. It has as long as some color on it, still a land and not a creature. And whenever you cast a spell, you may remove a slumber counter from it, and it taps for 2 mana. Basically, this is like an explosive vegetation in your command zone. It is a land that can tap for 2 for you. So yeah, on turn 3 or whatever, you get to 4 mana, put in play, you ramp yourself. Also, hey, it's also a 12/12 when you need to be a 12/12 eventually. Basically, though, this kind of a deck, if you build it like Eddie, you're just building a bunch of ramp, doing big crazy things, and Doppelgang is potentially the biggest, craziest thing that you can do. Next up, speaking of crazy, oh gosh, Adrix and Twin Casters. 2/2 Merfolk Wizard for 4 mana with Ward 2, because Ward needs to be slapped on everything these days. If one of our tokens to be created or controlled, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. Excuse me? This basically just makes it so that Doppelgang is doubly as effective. So again, instead of being like, oh, okay, cool. I mean, still at, whatever I say, 8 mana, 2 for 2. Now it's like, no. You get 2 times as much as that. You get 8 permanents instead of 4 at 8 mana, which is just crazy. And again, the further along that goes, again, like my 14 mana example, all of a sudden that's like, okay, it was 16, now it's 32 permanents. Yeah, you can very easily win with something like this once you're set up properly. Next up, Magus Lucia Kane. Speaking of which, a 1/1 human Tyranid Wizard for 4 mana and Teamer. At the beginning of combat your turn, put a counter on target creature. Cool! It's nice. What we care about, though, is tap, add colorless when you next cast a spell with X its mana cost, or activate ability X its mana cost this turn. Copy that spell or ability, choose new targets for the copy. Being able to copy Doppelgang is absolutely massive. I mean, there'd be a lot of Magus Lucia Kane decks if Villainous Wealth could fit in them. I mean, there'd be a lot of Villainous Wealth decks, but that can't fit in there. But what can fit in there now is Doppelgang. So yeah, an absolutely crazy, awesome play for you. Double that up, do some crazy things with Doppelgang. A really cool 1-card commander win. Next up, though, let's move on to a classic. At least a classic these days. I guess it came out in like Amonkhet, right? Regardless, Approach the Second Sun. Sorcery for 6 and a white. One of the kind of weirdest worded cards ever, I guess, but here we go. If it was cast from your hand and you've cast another spell named Approach the Second Sun this game, you win the game. Otherwise, put Approach the Second Sun into its owner's library, 7th from the top, and you gain 7 life. No other cards really work like this. I mean, it's not like, hey, if you did cast that other spell that's named the exact same thing, then you win. It's a very strange and awesome win condition. And one that, again, you might think, okay, you've got like, okay, I cast this, and then a couple turns later, I'll get to it, and I'll recast it. No, there are ways to literally cast this, go get it, and do it again, essentially. So have fun with that. Being able to essentially approach Second Sun twice is what you're looking to do. There's some commanders that can do this at an absurd rate. So yeah, this is definitely a one-card commander win condition that I will say, okay, the other ones I just mentioned, right, are not guaranteed wins, right? They are not guaranteed wins. They usually win you the game. I think every single time I've cast Villainous Wealth for any amount that has been massive, I've won the game, okay? You set yourself up to an absurd rate where your opponents cannot stop you. That being said, this one's like, no, if you cast this twice, you win. You just win. There's no stopping it unless some player has a card out there that's like, your opponents can't win the game. Then that would be the case, I guess. But really, there's no stopping this. So moving on, let's start with some commanders that can work really well with it. Will Scion of Peace, 2/4 Vigilant Human Wizard for 3 mana and Azorius. Tap spells you cast this turn that are white and are blue cost X less gas for X the amount of life you gain this turn. Act from the sorcery. This kind of works really weirdly with Will, where it's like, this also just happens to gain you 7 life, which really kind of is inconsequential all the time. It's just like, hey, stay alive before you get this back out. But Will's like, no, that actually kind of works, but also, thanks for the little extra life gain, but like, I've got other cards like Congregate that like have me gain an absurd amount. So yeah, I'm probably just going to reduce the cost of, Approach Second Sun from 6 in a white down to just a single white mana, 1 mana to cast that spell, gain even more life, reduce my spells even further if I untap Will and tap again. And also, by the way, I don't really feel like waiting around to draw that again. So, like, what I'm going to do is, again, I just reduced the cost of my cards probably by, like, 10 plus or so with my life gain cards. I'll, like, spend 1 mana to Factor Fiction, and then 1 mana to draw some cards, and, oh, Approach is back. Okay, I'll spend 1 more mana to win the game right here and now, because, again, I can do an absurd amount of crazy things on a turn with a commander like this. Next up, Elminster. Kind of similar in an interesting way. Whenever you scry, the next instant or spell you cast this turn costs X less to cast for X the number of cards looked at while scrying this way. So, yeah, you've got a lot of scrying effects in the deck that can reduce the cost of your spells, especially, I mean, just also this +2, draw a card and scry 2. So already right there, you reduce the cost by 2, which can be huge again for a 7 mana spell. And also with that, again, draw a card, scry 2 helps you dig down to get back to the Approach Second Sun again. You can also exile cards top your library to make, some fairies, and then also, cool, you can be your commander. Awesome. The important part, though, is, again, reduce the cost of the spell and also dig down into your deck. So, again, scry until you hit it again, get it back out, and all of a sudden, you win the game. Or how about losing your friends and winning the game with Heliod the Radiant Dawn? It's a crazy card. 4/4, each of your target enchantment card that isn't a god from your grave to your hand. Nice, but what's important here is let's flip this over, all right? Pay 3 in a Phyrexian blue, flip it. All of a sudden, Heliod the Warped Landscape, 4/6, cast spells though they had flash, so yeah, instant speed Approach Second Sun, gross. Even grosser though is spells you cast cost 1 less for each card your opponents have drawn this turn. So if you just like wheel once, you're like, okay, everyone else just drew 7 cards, cool, my spells cost 7 less, Approach costs only 1. Yeah. Oh, and also, by the way, if that's like your second one, you're wheeling into that, then you just like wheel into Approach and then you get it. So yeah, like a wheels-based strategy with this in here is deadly. Absolutely deadly. Yeah, a very cool 1-card win condition in Commander. Approach Second Sun, some really crazy things you can do with it. A really cool card. Next up, though, I'm kind of going to give you a 2-for-1 with this one, but let's start things off with Primal Surge. Yeah, there are entire decks literally just built around this and then everything else that isn't this. Anyway, a sorcery for 10 mana, but you're in green, so you can get there, right? Exile the top card of your library. If it's a permanent card, you may put it on the battlefield. If you do, repeat this process. This is some crazy, oh my goodness, what is going on type of play. Because if you are building this deck just like a full Primal Surge deck, where this is like the only sorcery in it, only non-permanent, I should say, yeah, you're going to like mill yourself, but also get your entire deck into play. And who doesn't want to do that? Just be able to say, okay, cool, yeah, all right, let's exile the top. Oh, look, a permanent into play. What's next? Oh, look, a permanent into play. What's next? Oh, look, a permanent into play. Yeah, there are plenty of ways, of course, to win from there. I mean, if you don't win, hopefully you have like an obstinate familiar or something that can stop you from losing the game when you draw your next card because you have no library. That being said, yeah, you essentially can just say, at one point, if you really need to, again, you may put it on the battlefield, so you don't have to. You can stop yourself, I guess. But come on, the point of this is just to get everything out, right? The point is to get every single thing out and win the game from there. So yeah, maybe you have a Haste Enabler in there, most likely, or like a Warstorm Surge. You're like, okay, everything comes into play, and then damage you all to oblivion. a crazy cool effect. And one that is somewhat similar, actually does, I guess, exactly what this next card wants to do anyway, but you have to build your deck around this one entirely, whereas this one you don't have to. Genesis Wave. Not very budget friendly at 64 cents. Search for X, green, green, green. With the top X card of your library, you may put any number of permanent cards with mana value X less, run them on the battlefield. They put all cards for this way that weren't put in your battlefield into your graveyard. Kind of like it's like a reverse Villainous Wealth, which is kind of ironic because this is like the original, I guess. But basically being able to get a lot of permanents, specifically permanents, off the top of your library and into play. Again, that can just be huge, essentially just for like ramping and getting a lot of lands into play. That being said, yeah, just cheat out some giant things as well. And the things that you don't cheat out, the instant sorceries. Who needs instant sorceries, right? If you're in green, but still. If you do have those, sure, put them in your graveyard. That's okay. But yeah, both these are somewhat similar in kind of what they're trying to do and how they're trying to win. But the ways that you build the decks around them are probably going to be a little bit different. Because again, Primal Surge is like, oh yeah, everything's a permanent. This one doesn't have to necessarily be that. That being said, some commanders that might want to consider these win conditions: Samut, Voice of Dissent, especially for Primal Surge. 3/4 Human Warrior, Flash, Double Strike, Vigilance, Haste. Other creatures you control have Haste. Again, being able to ensure that, again, I'm cheating out all these giant creatures. Cool. I want to be able to swing right away so I can take my opponents out. And this says, hey, my creatures have haste. It's on the commander. Be able to swing right away. That is absolutely massive for you. You can also pay a white and tap to untap another creature. That might be very relevant. Who knows? Next up, Rorikthar the Unbowed. This one's just a hilarious card. 6/6 Ogre Warrior. Attacks each combat of Fable. Whenever a player casts a non-creature spell, 6 damage to that player. So yeah, there is a little bit of a downside to this one, including like any non-creature spells in the deck, but you're probably have to include some, maybe, depending. Regardless, you're like, okay, cool, Primal Surge. Yeah, I'll take the 6. Ow. But I get everything for free, essentially, off the top of my library into play. And opponents, hey, if you're casting on creatures, that's going to hurt you quite a bit. Also, I'm going to hurt you with my giant army that's cheating to play. And then finally, this one you have to be careful with. Nikki of the Old Ways, a 5/5 Centaur Druid for 5 mana. You can't cast non-creature spells. That just happens to be a part of the card, so yeah, it works against these one-spell wins that I'm talking about right now. That being said, this kind of commander can really help you set up to get to the point that you need to get to. Whenever you tap a land for mana, add 1 mana of any type of land produced. So this is a mana doubler, which is huge, especially for something like Genesis Wave. You're like, yeah, dump a ton of mana into that. That being said, you of course need a way to get rid of this, which can come on another creature like a Temur Sabertooth to bounce it back to your hand or whatnot, or another creature that ETBs, destroy creature. You need a way to get rid of this so you can actually cast your non-creature spell. That being said, there's plenty of ways to do that. When you do so, have a big explosive turn because, again, that mana doubling, which is hilariously fun. So yeah, Genesis Wave as well as Primal Surge are both really fun, really similar but yet different, crazy ways to win with just one spell in Commander. Moving on, though, next up we've got Insurrection. One of the, I'd say, kind of more like OG Commander victory cards, and one that is pretty straightforward in how it works. Hey, sorcerer for 8 mana, 5 red, red, red. Untap all creatures, gain control of them until end of turn. They gain haste until end of turn. Basically, it's a massive threat effect that threatens everything. And again, if the board is at a state where everyone's got a lot of creatures out, all of a sudden you're like, cool, I get all of them. You have none of them. You can't block. Goodbye. So yeah, it's a very simple, straightforward card that the other ones I've talked about so far, mostly you kind of have to build your deck around, or at least like if you have a Genesis Wave, like a lot of permanents in that deck, it wouldn't work really well in like a Spellslinger type of deck. Obviously, this one it's like, oh, okay, if you've got a way to produce a lot of mana, this could just be a way to win. That being said, there are certain commanders out there that can make even more out of this and do crazy things with it and really take advantage of how cool this win condition can be for your deck. I mean, how about Donna Drace the Renegade? 1 in Grixis colors, a 4/3 vampire pirate. Each creature you control but don't own gets +2/+2 and has menace and death touch, is a pirate to other types. When you cast a non-creature spell you don't own, create 2-tap treasure tokens. So stealing is the name of the game for this pirate commander. That being said, you cast Insurrection. Yeah, here's what's going to happen. Well, all of a sudden, each creature I control but don't own, aka all the creatures I just stole, get +2/+2. Oh, and Menace and Death Touch, which I guess Menace and Death Touch could help you out if your opponent, like, has some flash creatures. Cool. Other than that, though, no, just a nice pump effect that's like, oh, you know what's better than your armies? Your armies under my control that are bigger now and can hit you and take you all out quite easily. Oh, by the way, I'm also stealing other things from you because I'm a pirate. Next up, we've got the Beast Deathless Prince, a 6/6 demon. For 4 mana, when you cast a spell, gain control of target creature until end of turn, untap it, gains menace and haste until end of turn. Basically, hey, even the commander is threatening things. That's great. Enters battlefield tap with 6 stun counters on it. So cool, it can, you know, eventually get untapped. That being said, whenever a creature deals common damage to its owner, untap the beast and draw a card. Okay, so basically, hey, if Insurrection doesn't take your opponents out, you're going to be set up properly because, well, you're going to be getting all of your stun counters off this, which is nice. But more importantly, yeah, if I stole like 20 creatures and then smacked all my opponents with their own creatures, all of a sudden, I am going to be drawing 20 cards, which is going to set myself even further to win the game from there. So there's a lot of crazy things that you can do with that. Also, Quintorius Lore Master, another good spot for Insurrection. A 3/5 Elven Cleric Vigilance. At the beginning of your end step, exile target non-creature drawing card from your graveyard. Create 3/2 red and white sphere creature token. Pay 1 and Boros colors. Tap, sacrifice a spirit. Choose target card, exile with it. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost this turn. If so, put it at the bottom. Anyways, basically, hey, cheat on spells out of your graveyard in a kind of roundabout way, but essentially, again, you're in red. You've got plenty of looting and rummaging effects. Discard your giant 8-mana spell, put it in your graveyard, and then all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, get rid of it. It's a spirit. Okay, cool. I'll sacrifice that spirit. I will cast this basically for 3 mana and just Insurrection the board and just have fun with that. Also, keep in mind that you are untapping Quintorius, so if you really want to cast something else with it, you could. If you have another spirit in play that you can sacrifice and the mana to do so. So yeah, some really cool plays can have with Insurrection. It is one of the most more broad win condition cards where it's like, okay, a lot of decks out there could just cast this and win in certain circumstances as long as there's enough things on the board. Other decks, though, like the ones we talked about, can really take advantage of it even further and do some crazy things with it. So yeah, Insurrection, a fantastic 1-card win in Commander. Moving on, kind of similar but different. We've got Rise the Dark Realms, Sorcery for 7, black, 9 mana in total, but well worth it. Put all creature cards from all graveyards on the battlefield under your control. Absurd card. One that says, hey, you know those creatures that were out there, then that wrath happened, then we got more creatures up, then that wrath happened. Remember when you milled? Yeah, hey, I want them all. They're all mine. No, not just mine, all of yours too. I am reanimating every single creature, and they are all mine, and you're all in big trouble. So yeah, this is somewhat like Insurrection, where it's like, okay, I'm using my opponent's creatures against them, but this one's more permanent, but also unless you have a haste enabler, you're not swinging right away, so your opponents can just be like, oh gosh, do you have anything to deal with this? No? Do you? No? Okay, we gotta wait another turn to lose. Anyways, a crazy good card that, yes, again, could just throw it in any deck out there potentially, but there's a lot of decks out there that can take advantage of it even more so, though. So make sure you're keeping that in mind. Masker Girl, very simple, very effective, mono black, 4/4, Menace Human Assassin. Enters the battlefield, each other creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Whenever a creature dies this turn, each creature other Masker Girl gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Basically, kind of like a chain reaction of okay, took out a tiny creature, which takes out a bigger creature, takes out a slightly bigger creature. Essentially, it's going to probably wipe the board. It is a board wipe in the command zone. You can just keep wiping the board again and again and again. And all of a sudden, again, graveyards are going to be chock full of a lot of juicy creatures. And then you're like, okay, Rise of the Dark Realms, they're all mine. Goodbye. How about Smeagol? Helpful guide. Yeah, very helpful for you. A 4/2 that says, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died or control this turn, the ring tempts you. Whenever the ring tempts you, target opponent reveals cards to the top of the library to the land. But that card on the battlefield, tapped under control of the rest of your graveyard. Alec has one of these, and it's a fantastic deck. Essentially, get tempted, mill people, ramp, and then also, yeah, fill their graveyards with juicy creatures to Rise the Dark Realms. Or how about Hidetsugu and Kairi? This one goes about in a different way. 5/4 ETB, draw 3, put 2 from your hand on the bottom of your top of your library in any order, basically a brainstorm. On top of that, when it dies, exile the top card of your library. Target opponent loses life equal to mana value. If it's an instant source card, you may cast it paying its mana cost. Basically, hey, set yourself up to get a big spell on top of your library that you want to cast for free and also drain someone. And yeah, I'd like to drain that player 9 with Rise of the Dark Realms and also cast that for free to steal all those juicy creatures. So yeah, Rise of the Dark Realms, definitely kind of like Insurrection, but in a different way. Can fit in a lot of decks out there, but there are certain commanders out there that can really take advantage of it as well. So a fantastic 1-card win. Next up, this one, I put 1 spell. Technically speaking, this is hey, 1 spell win. Unlike a lot of the other ones I've talked about, and again, the only approach to the second son, I think, is only guaranteed win if you actually cast it twice. No one has a you can't lose thing in play. All the other ones are okay, things have to happen, but this one's you need other things to be present, which I guess Insurrection kind of does too. Regardless, Expropriate. I've never seen anyone lose when they cast this, let's just say that. Oh my goodness. Sorcery for 9 mana. One of the saltiest cards in Commander. Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for time or money. For each time vote, take an extra turn for this one. For each money vote, choose a permanent owned by the voter, gain control of it, exile Expropriate. If you are playing against this card, the only chance you probably have, unless you have a Blightsteel Colossus in play, is to say, yeah, you get money. You get to steal something from me. Don't give them an extra turn. They're already going to be getting 1 extra turn when they pick that. Don't give them an extra turn. Oh my goodness. So essentially they get one extra turn and they steal the best 3 things out there, one from each player essentially. And yeah, again, there's a reason why I've never seen anyone really lose when they play this card. Now again, like many of these other cards, if you just throw it in a deck, it might just work really well for you and might just win you the game. That being said, there are certain commanders, of course, that can really take advantage of this and do some disgusting things with it. First up, Tivit Seller Secrets. Oh gosh. 6/6 Flying Ward 3 enters the battlefield or deals counter to a player. Starting with you, each player votes for evidence or bribery. Each evidence, you get to investigate, get a clue. For each prior vote, get a treasure token. Yeah, most of the time, you're going to be getting a lot of clues if you're playing this, and a treasure token because you choose that one. That being said, you're getting 2 because while voting, you can vote initial time. And that applies not to just this ability, this trigger, but also every other card that has voting on it, including Expropriate. So because the player who casts Expropriate has this out, they get to vote twice, meaning that they're going to be getting 2 extra turns on top of stealing one of each of your things. Basically, time stretch plus, bribery. A way to steal things. There we go. That very, very good, Mitch. Well done. Anyways, yeah, you're not going to lose the game when you're doing that. Next up, Narset Enlightened Master, a 3/2 human monk with first strike and hexproof for 6 mana. When it attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until end of your turn, you may cast non-creature spells from among those cards without paying their mana cost. Hey, this is already just a brokenly crazy good commander that's like, oh yeah, extra spell, extra turn spell, extra combat spell, all the extra spells. And yes, Expropriate, of course, is good to cheat out with this. Absolutely. Next up, Jing Taxi's Progress Tyrant, a brutal commander. 5/5 Phyrexian Praetor. Whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery, copy that spell. Choose targets for the copy. Where an opponent casts an artifact, instant, sorcery spell, counter that spell. Happens only once each turn. So basically, it's gonna be harder for you guys to stop me essentially, because if you try to counter it, it's gonna get countered. And also, by the way, I get 2 of them, so I get 2 Expropriates, so I get 2 extra turns and steal 6 things most likely. Yeah, that's gonna be game over. Yeah, again, another spell that is dependent on certain factors out there. If your opponents literally have nothing but lands, okay, yeah, you're not gonna get as much value out of this. Still, I mean, like, extra turn, steal 3 lands, that's still pretty good, right? So yeah, you are probably gonna win the game. It's not guaranteed, but again, I did say technically a 1 spell win condition in Commander. Next up, another 1 spell kind of card in a way, because this is dependent on you building a deck that actually can take advantage of this, which if you are including this in your deck, you probably will. And as long as you did that, you win when you cast this card, basically. Sorcery for 7 mana in total. Tooth and Nail. Choose 1. Search for the 2 creature cards revealed and put in your hand, then shuffle. Yeah, or put 2 creature cards in your hand on the battlefield. Or you can entwine it by paying 2 more, which you will because you're in a green deck and you've got access to all the mana in the world. You paid 9 mana, you tutored for 2 creatures, and you cheat them into play. Congratulations, you win. How? Well, those 2 creatures combo together. Maybe it's, for example, Chaos the Unhallowed, and another creature we'll get to hear in a second. 5/5 Intimidating Zombie Cleric. Whenever a human deals combat, you destroy it. That's not relevant. Well, I mean, it can be, but it's not relevant for the combo. Other non-humans you control get ++1 and have Undying. Okay, Undying is a crazy, brutally effective, awesome thing that says, hey, if the creature had no counters on it, it comes right back with a counter on it. So, Triskelion. Yep. A 1/1 that enters with 3 counters on it. By removing counter from it, you ping something for 1. Basically, the combo works like this. This has counters on it. You remove them, you ping things, including with the last one, pinging itself. Taking that one out. Actually, ping it twice. You have to ping it with 2 because it gets ++1, right? So anyways, ping it twice. You ping 1 somewhere else, you ping twice to itself. It gets taken out. It comes back into play because of Undying, getting even more counters. Cool. So all of a sudden you get more counters from the ETB, more counters from the Undying. You remove them. Again, it's never going to have counters on it when it dies, so it just keeps coming back again, again, and again. Infinite damage to all the things, including your opponent's faces. Not infinite, right? Rules lawyers out there. Okay, 4 trillion. Whatever you want. Anyways, enough to take out all your opponent's things and them as well. Yeah, Tooth and Nail. Again, this is just one combination of 2 creatures. There's tons of other combinations of 2 creatures that can win either game by Tooth and Nailing them out. So again, this is kind of a 1-card win condition with Tooth and Nail because, yeah, if you don't have 2 creatures that combo and win you the game, it is not a win the game card with 1 spell. I mean, I guess technically if you like Blightsteel Colossus plus Xenagos, that could probably just take someone out. So yeah, there you go. But still, there's plenty of combos out there this works with. First up, Saval Heart of the Wild is a good commander for this one because, well, you get a lot of mana with this. A 2/3 that says whenever a creature enters the battlefield, its controller may draw a card if it has the power greater than each other creature's power. You're going to be drawing a lot with this. On top of that, pay a green, tap at X mana. Any combination of colors for your mana pool, X the greatest power creature you control. You can very easily get that to 9+. You're like, oh yeah, I'll just play Tooth and Nail. Oh yeah, let me go these 2 giant creatures. Okay, I win the game from here. Moving on, Mile the Anima. Again, a commander that just like, hey, chock full with giant creatures, including some that might combo together. Pay 3 and 9 colors. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Put a creature card power 5 or greater from among them on the battlefield. The rest of my library in any order. A very fun commander, and one that, yeah, could be like, oh, okay, cool. Just throw Tooth and Nail in there just to make sure I have another win condition with this one. And, yeah, there's a lot of other decks, I guess, that can utilize Tooth and Nail. It is a crazy cool card, and one that, yeah, can be utilized in a non-combo fashion, but also, if someone's casting it and they're entwining it, you better try to stop that, or you probably lose the game, because it's a crazy good one-spell win. Next up, one that is, well, kind of dependent on your opponents, but not really up to a certain point. Torment of Hailfire, a sorcery for X, black, black. Repeat the following process X times. Each opponent loses 3 life unless they sacrifice an online permanent or discards a card. Here's the thing. Yeah, if you're playing against a token-based strategy that has like 40 tokens in play and you don't have enough mana to take your opponents out, then you might not take them out. But in the vast majority of circumstances, you're not going to have enough things to sacrifice or discard without just being out of all of their life. So either they have nothing left, including, well, no non-land permanents or no cards in hand, or they're just gone. So yeah, this is very much a win condition X spell that's like Exsanguinate plus. So yeah, a very good card. A commander that can take advantage of this. We already talked about her brother, Rowan, Sign of War. Yeah, Rowan is a brutally good card. Fortune, Wizard Menace. Tap spells you cast this turn that are black and or red. Cost X less cast for X the amount of life you lost this turn. So the opposite of will, essentially. Activate sorcery. Being able to lose life is very easy. There are certain cards out there like Mischievous Poltergeist, which is like, hey, pay a life, regenerate me. And you can do that as many times as you want. So essentially, you can just take your life total down to whatever you want. You lost that much life, and all of a sudden, you tap this, and you're like, oh, all my spells cost like 40 less. I mean, you need a little more life than that. Let's say 39. Anyways, and then cast Torment of Hailfire, and you win because your opponents aren't going to be able to pay that amount. So they're going to be gone. Next up, Baldros Witherbloom, a 4/4 Elder Dragon with flying. At the beginning of your upkeep, cool, you get a 1/1 pass that can gain your life when it dies. Nice. Then you can also use that life to pay 10 life, untap all lands you control active only once each turn. So basically, tap all your lands for a lot of mana, most likely. Maybe you have a mana doubler out there too. Untap them, do it again. A lot of ways to just dump all that mana into that huge Torrent of Hailfire spell to win from there. Or how about if you're a mean person? I'm just kidding, but kind of not. Turgid, God of Fright. Yeah, this is the kind of commander that you need to ask your player group ahead of time if they're okay with you playing, because it is a brutal commander that is brutally easy to make brutally effective. Whenever an opponent sacrifices a non-token permanent or discards a permanent card, you may put that card from the graveyard on the battlefield under control. So again, even if Torment of Hailfire does not take out your opponents, you are gaining all those things that they are losing, and you get it all, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, I just lost like 18 life, lost all my things. You got it all. Congratulations, you win. Turgid, mean. Anyways, yeah, Torment of Hellfire, a very, very good one-card finisher in many circumstances. And finally, again, one spell. I put dependent on this one because this does depend on you having an army, but yeah, this is a good way to finish your opponents off when you have that army. I will say that I did, with this category, I did say like one spell, so I didn't include like Craterhoof Behemoth because that is a creature, which, I mean, is a spell, right? But I was like more focusing on like instant sorceries, so I guess maybe I should have said that. Regardless, off topic, Triumph of the Hordes is crazy. Sorcerer, 4 mana. Until end turn, creatures you control get +1 and gain trample and infect. What were they thinking when they made this card? I mean, goodness gracious, this is like Overrun plus everything, essentially, right? Okay, Overrun +3/+3, okay, so yeah, that's better, right? Wrong. Infect is crazy good. So being able to say, you know what, just +1, oh no, trample still so I can get through though, but infect, yeah, if I just get a lot of tiny creatures through or anything through, my opponents are probably gone because it just takes 10 poison counters to take them out. So in a go wide strategy, this is like a 4 mana, I win once I'm set up properly and have enough creatures on the board, just take my opponents out. And if you don't win, you're setting yourselves up for, you know, well, getting them close enough to taking out. I mean, you probably just take out 2 players, maybe get 1 poison counter on a third, or at least 2, I guess, if they get through. Well, it depends on the trample. Anyways. As long as you get 1 poison counter on a third, they're probably still taken out because you probably proliferate anyways. A crazy good finisher, even better in a Vorinclex Monstrous Raider deck. 6/6 trample haste. If one of our counters are put on a permanent or player, put that twice that many of those counters on permanent player instead. Doubles up counters put on players. Yeah, sign me up for that. All of a sudden, I am putting on twice as many -1/-1 counters on my opponent's creatures, but more importantly, twice as many poison counters on my opponent. So yeah, it doesn't take nearly as much to get through to take them out. Just like 5 infect damage will take opponents out with this in play. That is crazy. Edric's Master Trust, a commander that is like a flying men commander. Those like little evasive 1/1s for 1 mana essentially. Yeah, that's going to have a lot of this in the deck. So all of a sudden you just get all those out. You draw a ton of cards because whenever a creature is combined with one of your opponents, its controller may draw a card. You can draw an absurd amount of cards with this very quickly. Draw into Triumph of the Hordes, and all of a sudden, oh, my tiny little 1/1s. Oh, I got a little army. They're getting through my opponents, and all of a sudden, Yeah, I'm gonna take you all out with a 4-mana spell that says they're all incredibly deadly now. Basically, 1/5 of their, like, it's like a 1/5 of their life total, kind of essentially, for each one that gets through, basically, with poison. Moving on, Reach the Redeemed. Yeah, another way to basically just say, like, oh, I'm making an absurdly large army so quickly. A 1/1 for 1, pay 3 and tap 2 in a Selesnya, and tap, make a 1/1 elf. Cool. Or pay 4 Selesnya, tap. For each creature token you control, you get a copy of it. So again, basically, like, hey, double up your army. Double your army again. Oh, you've got 40 creatures? Cool. Oh, they're just 1/1s? Your opponents aren't that worried about that. They're like, we're fine. It's just 1/1s. We can block. We're fine. And we block a couple. We'll be fine. And you're like, Triumph of the Hordes, +1/+1. They're hitting for 2. They have Infect. Just 5 need to get through on each opponent. They're going to be gone. Yeah, you're going to win the game quite quickly with that. So again, another one that is dependent, yes, but it is a 1-spell card that just finishes off a game for you. So I definitely had to include it in this list. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts are on these 1-spell win cards. And also let me know what I missed. What other 1-spell win cards are out there that I did not mention in this episode? And please keep in mind, I am not talking about like permanence on this one. I guess I just said permanence, right? Instant sorceries is what I went for these spells, right? Just these spells that are like, hey, you cast it, cool, I win. Or in some cases, like, cool, I cast it, I gain control of all your things, then I win. Yeah, I think it's a really cool concept. There's a lot of players out there that really like building around one spell like I do with Villainous Wealth. Let me know in the comments below if you are one of those players. Check the comments. Check the description below if you want to see the list of the cards I talked about on this episode and consider picking some of those up. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.